Keanu Reeves had no idea that a short walk to get coffee would turn into a moment that would melt millions of hearts across the world. It was a quiet Los Angeles morning, and Keanu, dressed casually in a dark hoodie and jeans, was strolling through the city just like any regular person. No cameras, no crowd, just the same Keanu everyone in Hollywood whispers about. The humble star, the man who gives up his seat on the subway, the one who lives like he never became a global icon. As he approached a familiar crosswalk, the pedestrian light blinked green. He stepped onto the street, hands tucked in his pockets, completely unaware that a police cruiser was making a sharp left turn just seconds away. The young officer inside the car was distracted, glancing quickly at his screen, perhaps responding to a low-level incident. It only took a second. The front bumper clipped Keanu's side, not hard enough to cause a major injury, but just enough to send him off balance. He stumbled, fell onto the pavement, and his coffee cup rolled under a parked car. The street went silent. Passers-by gasped. A man shouted. A phone camera switched on. The police car screeched to a stop, and the officer rushed out, already pale from panic. When he reached the man he had just struck, recognition hit him like a wave. This wasn't just a civilian. This was Keanu Reeves. The Keanu Reeves. What happened next stunned everyone. Keanu didn't explode. He didn't get up with rage, demand answers, or threaten legal action. Instead, he blinked slowly, sat up on one knee, and looked around with quiet awareness. When he saw the officer standing above him, paralyzed with guilt and fear, Keanu did something almost nobody expected. He smiled. "Are you okay?" Keanu asked gently, his voice calm and concerned. The officer stammered, unsure how to respond. "I'm all right," Keanu added, touching his arm and brushing dust off his clothes. Accidents happen. In a world where tempers flare and egos dominate headlines, Keanu's response was the opposite. Pure, unshaken grace. And that moment, captured by a few stunned witnesses and shared online, would soon make the world stop scrolling. The young police officer stood frozen, eyes wide, breath shallow. Just moments ago, he was responding to a routine traffic report. Now, he had hit one of the most beloved celebrities on Earth. As Keanu Reeves sat up slowly on the pavement, brushing dust off his hoodie with a soft wince, the officer took a step back, visibly shaken. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. His hands trembled at his sides, his radio crackling quietly from his belt. People had started to gather. A few held their phones up, recording. Others whispered in disbelief. "Is that really Keanu Reeves?" one voice asked. "He just got hit by a cop," another added. The tension was thick in the air, but Keanu remained still and composed. His calmness was so out of place that it only made the moment more surreal. The officer finally found the courage to speak. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you. I was looking at..." His voice cracked mid-sentence. Keanu looked up at him, his face unreadable at first. Then slowly he gave a reassuring nod. "It's okay," Keanu said, his tone soft and level. "You didn't do it on purpose. I'm all right." The officer knelt beside him, struggling to hold back the weight of the situation. His training hadn't prepared him for this. Not the accident, and definitely not for the fact that the man he had just struck was offering him comfort. He kept apologizing over and over, his voice barely above a whisper. But Keanu didn't flinch. He placed a hand gently on the officer's arm, not to accuse, but to reassure. "You're having a rough day," Keanu said, almost like an old friend. "We all do sometimes." That single gesture, human, forgiving, undeserved, was the moment someone in the crowd captured on camera. No shouting, no anger, just kindness. And as that clip began spreading online, viewers from around the world would soon witness what grace under pressure truly looked like. While the officer expected outrage, paperwork, maybe even suspension, what he received instead was a moment of humanity. Keanu didn't just forgive him, he saw him. And that, more than anything, would change what happened next. Within minutes, the street corner where Keanu Reeves had fallen was surrounded. What had started as a quiet accident was quickly becoming a public spectacle. More bystanders gathered, some drawn by the police car, others recognizing the fallen man as someone more than just another pedestrian. Word spread like wildfire. Keanu Reeves had been hit by a police car. And incredibly, He was still sitting there, calm, kind, and in control of the situation. Phones were out, cameras were rolling. In the era of instant uploads and viral footage, every moment was being captured. But what shocked people most wasn't the accident itself. It was Keanu's behavior. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't shaken, and he wasn't even calling for help. He sat with his legs crossed now, his jacket lightly dusted from the pavement, gently assuring the panicked officer that things would be okay. The image was surreal. This was John Wick, Neo, a man who had played some of the most intense roles in cinema, now showing real-life grace after being hit by a moving car. "Dude, is that Keanu Reeves?" a man whispered to his friend while recording. "What's he even doing here?" another asked, confused. But among the awe and gossip, there was also silence. People were struck by the humility unfolding in front of them. The man who could have reacted with ego, entitlement, or even legal fury had chosen something else: compassion. A middle-aged woman in a blue coat stepped forward. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked him gently. Keanu nodded with a warm smile. "I think I'll survive," he said. A small ripple of laughter spread through the crowd, lightening the mood. Someone handed him a water bottle. Another offered to call a paramedic, but Keanu waved it off. "No need," he said. "Just let me breathe a minute." Meanwhile, the officer stood nearby, still visibly stunned, now being approached by his partner who had just arrived in a second squad car. But before any official statements or medical checks, everyone's focus remained on Keanu. He wasn't just the man at the center of the scene, he was the calm in the storm. His presence, gentle, human, and unshaken, had shifted the entire energy of the street. No outrage, no accusations, just a quiet display of character that left everyone around him changed, and the cameras kept rolling. Keanu Reeves slowly stood up, brushing the dust off his jeans with the same patience you'd expect from someone rising after a fall on a movie set, not from being struck by a police car. The officer instinctively stepped forward to help, but Keanu held up a hand gently, not in anger, but as if to say, "I've got it." The crowd around him watched in near silence, not sure whether to applaud his composure or to say something. He gave a nod to the officer, then turned toward the people gathered, smiling softly to those who had offered him help, water, or just their presence. He took a deep breath, glanced around the street, and then, without fanfare, walked back to the patrol car and picked up the officer's notepad, which had fallen during the chaos. It wasn't dramatic or staged. It was natural. He handed it back with a quiet, "You dropped this." The officer, still visibly rattled, looked at him like he couldn't believe this was really happening. This man, a global superstar, had just shown more decency than most people would after a fender bender, let alone a physical hit. "Do you want me to sit for a report?" Keanu asked, calm and collected. "Or do we just call it a coffee-related near-death experience?" The way he said it, dry, slightly amused, brought another wave of chuckles from the onlookers. In that moment, he wasn't a celebrity. He was just a kind man trying to diffuse tension with humor. Then, doing what no one could have predicted, Keanu stepped beside the officer and asked him, "Are you on duty for a while, or I've got 3 more hours?" he said quietly. Keanu nodded and smiled again. "Then I hope it's an easy shift from here. And hey, accidents happen." It wasn't just what Keanu said, it was how he said it. With no condescension, no sarcasm, just human understanding, just peace. The officer, moved almost to tears, thanked him repeatedly, barely holding himself together. No one expected a Hollywood actor to react like this. But Keanu had just proven, once again, that he isn't like most people. And what he did next would only deepen that truth. Just when people thought they had seen the full extent of Keanu's humility and kindness, he did something no one expected. Again. The crowd was slowly beginning to disperse, and the buzz of downtown LA traffic had returned to its normal rhythm. The officer had already apologized multiple times, and Keanu had waved it off each time with that same gentle smile. But before walking away, Keanu paused, as if remembering something important. He turned back toward the officer, who was now standing near his cruiser, nervously speaking to his partner and preparing for the incident report. Keanu walked up to him, not with tension, not with ego, but with intention. He reached into his back pocket, pulled out a small leather card holder, and then slipped something into the officer's hand. The officer looked down, confused. It was a business card, simple, clean, with no flashy design. Just a number and a first name. Keanu. The officer blinked. "What's this?" he asked, his voice low. Keanu leaned in, speaking just loudly enough for those nearest to hear. "If anyone gives you a hard time about this, media department, anyone, just call me," he said. "I'll vouch for you." There was a beat of silence. Everyone nearby stopped moving. "You were distracted." "Yeah," Keanu continued. "But you weren't careless. It was a mistake. I'm not pressing charges, and I don't want your career ruined over an accident." The young officer looked like he'd been punched in the chest, not from pain, but from the overwhelming emotion of it all. He nodded, speechless. His partner stepped forward to thank Keanu, but even he looked stunned by the sheer grace being shown, and then, because this was Keanu, he laughed softly, shrugged, and added, "Though I'll be walking a little slower for a few days, so you still owe me coffee." That was the line that broke the tension for good. Laughter rippled through the remaining crowd. One woman clapped. Another man shouted, "Legend!" And that was it. Keanu gave a polite wave and began to walk away, not needing to be the center of attention, just glad to have handled something difficult with heart. What he gave that officer wasn't just forgiveness, it was protection. And in that small gesture, Keanu once again reminded the world why he's more than just a celebrity. He's the kind of human being we rarely see in headlines. By the time Keanu Reeves walked away from the scene, the story was already spreading like wildfire. Within just 30 minutes, the first video clips had hit social media. A short 10-second clip showing Keanu helping the officer to his feet, smiling, and handing him the notepad was posted on Twitter by a local passerby. The caption read, "Keanu Reeves just got hit by a cop car and ended up comforting him. This man is different." Within an hour, it had over 100,000 likes. Other angles soon followed. Someone had filmed the exact moment Keanu brushed himself off and said, "Accidents happen." Another showed the card exchange. But it wasn't the visuals alone that went viral, it was the feeling behind them. People were watching not just a movie star on the street, but a man showing rare grace, empathy, and humor in a moment that would have broken most. News outlets caught on quickly. TMZ ran a headline. "Keanu Reeves hit by cop car, responds with kindness." People magazine followed with a more emotional take. "Keanu's heart of gold shines again in street incident." Twitter exploded with fan posts, edits, and even sketches of the scene. TikTokers narrated the story in dramatic tones while showing the videos to emotional music. Some just wrote, "This is why he's everyone's favorite." But beyond the headlines, something deeper happened. The officer himself, still processing the day's events, quietly posted a note on his private Instagram page that evening. "Today, I hit someone with my squad car. I thought I ruined my career, maybe worse. But the man I hit forgave me instantly. Not only that, he gave me a way out, a way to be seen as human again. I didn't deserve it, but he gave it anyway. Thank you, Keanu." The post got leaked and only added fuel to the fire. People didn't just see Keanu as a good actor now, they saw him as a symbol of compassion in a world full of outrage. He didn't need to tweet about it, he didn't film it for likes, he simply was kind, even when he had every right to be angry. And that's why it spread. It wasn't just a moment caught on camera, it was a feeling people wanted to hold on to, a reminder of what grace looks like in real life. The internet didn't just react to the incident, it embraced it. In an age where anger often gets more clicks than kindness, Keanu Reeves's quiet, gracious response sparked something rare: collective admiration. Twitter threads were flooded with tributes. Users shared personal stories of their own brief encounters with Keanu, each one echoing the same themes: humble, kind, no ego. A woman posted about how Keanu once gave up his seat on the subway for her grandmother. Another person recalled how he stayed behind after a rap party just to clean up trash. Now, this latest event added to a growing legend. On Reddit, a user created a thread titled, "Keanu Reeves just got hit by a cop car and still helped the officer. How is he real?" It instantly went viral. Comments poured in, some humorous, others emotional. One reply simply said, "He's not just a good actor, he's a good man." The memes came next. One image showed Keanu standing calmly with the text, "Gets hit by a police car, asks if the officer's okay." Another had him wearing angel wings, with the caption, "We don't deserve Keanu Reeves." Even the usually cynical corners of the internet couldn't find anything bad to say. In fact, the response was unusually wholesome. Celebrities began to speak out. Sandra Bullock reposted the story on Instagram with a heart emoji and the caption, "That's the Keanu I know." Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson tweeted, "Class act, always. This guy is the real deal." Fans of Keanu's films, The Matrix, John Wick, Speed, started using scenes from his movies to create mashups celebrating his kindness in real life. Edits with emotional music and slow-motion clips of the moment he helped the officer began to surface everywhere, from YouTube Shorts to TikTok For You pages. But the most powerful responses weren't just from fans or fellow stars. They came from everyday people who were tired of negativity online. People commented things like, "This story gave me hope today, and I showed this to my son so he could see what kindness looks like." In less than 24 hours, Keanu had become the center of a global conversation. Not because he got hit by a car, but because he reminded the world that being decent even in unfair moments still matters. And in doing so, he proved once again why his name carries more than fame. It carries meaning. 2 days after the incident, something unexpected appeared online, a video statement from the young officer involved in the accident. Until now, his identity had been shielded, known only to those who witnessed the moment. But as the story gained international traction, curiosity grew around who this officer was and, more importantly, how he felt after the encounter with Keanu Reeves. The officer, identified only by his first name, James, posted a short, emotional video to his department's internal YouTube channel. It wasn't polished, he wasn't in uniform. He sat at a desk in a plain white t-shirt, eyes tired but sincere. The video was simple, raw, and clearly unrehearsed. "I wasn't going to say anything publicly," James began. "But after everything I've seen the last 2 days, I feel like I owe the world, and Mr. Reeves, my voice." He paused, swallowing hard. That morning was normal. I was responding to a minor parking issue. I looked down for literally 1 second. When I looked back up, I'd clipped someone in the crosswalk. His eyes lowered. When I stepped out of the car and saw it was him, Keanu Reeves, I froze, not because of who he was on screen, but because I thought my career was over. James then described what the world had already seen, the fall, the shock, the gentle way Keanu had spoken to him. But what hadn't been captured on camera was how Keanu had waited with him afterward, not out of obligation, but out of empathy. "He kept asking me if I was okay," James said, his voice cracking. "I hit him, and he was trying to calm me down. I've never experienced anything like that." James held up the small business card Keanu had given him. "He didn't just let me off the hook. He gave me dignity when I felt like I had none." The video ended with a message that hit deep across the internet. "Kindness is powerful. I'll never forget what he did for me. Not because he's famous, but because he chose compassion when he didn't have to." Within hours, the clip was re-uploaded across platforms. It wasn't just a follow-up. It was a second wave of emotion. Keanu hadn't just forgiven a mistake. He had healed a man's guilt. And now, the world knew the full story, from both sides. While the world buzzed with headlines, tweets, and emotional videos, Keanu Reeves stayed completely silent. No interviews, no statements, no comment on the trending hashtags. Just like always, he let his actions speak louder than any words ever could. And just days after the incident, as if nothing had happened, he returned to his regular routine. Quiet walks, local coffee shops, head down, hoodie up. A fan spotted him in the same neighborhood cafe where he had been headed the morning he was hit. This time, someone approached him cautiously, asking, "Hey, are you okay?" Keanu looked up with a soft smile and simply replied, "I'm good. Just a bruise and a free lesson in street awareness." The fan laughed, clearly relieved. Keanu didn't bring up the accident again. He wasn't interested in fame for being kind, he was just being himself. But even in his silence, Keanu's presence had changed the atmosphere. The baristas at the cafe greeted him with more warmth than usual. The manager gave him a free coffee without saying a word. Customers smiled when he walked past, not because they wanted a photo, but because they felt they had witnessed something rare, a celebrity whose heart matched his image. People from the community began sharing their own Keanu moments, stories of how he helped carry groceries for an elderly woman, paid for a stranger's meal without leaving a name, or sat quietly with a grieving man in a park just to keep him company. Suddenly, the accident became more than a viral story. It became a spark that reignited stories of human decency all across the internet. Meanwhile, charity organizations took notice. Several police reform advocates highlighted Keanu's actions as an example of de-escalation and mutual respect. Others called for a Keanu Kindness Challenge, encouraging people to perform unexpected acts of compassion in their daily lives. But through it all, Keanu remained the same. He didn't capitalize on the attention. He didn't share a dramatic retelling or use it as a PR opportunity. Instead, he moved forward, quietly, just as he always had, reminding the world that true kindness doesn't need to be announced, it just needs to be done. And in that quiet return, he gave us one more lesson. Kindness isn't loud. It's powerful in its silence. The story of Keanu Reeves getting hit by a police car could have been just another strange headline, one of those blink-and-you-miss-it celebrity moments that disappears by morning. But it didn't disappear. It stayed. It grew. And not because of the drama, but because of the way Keanu responded, with calm, compassion, and complete humility. In a world that often celebrates conflict and outrage, Keanu chose grace. That choice, quiet and unrehearsed, left a deeper mark than any film premiere or award show. By the end of the week, the moment had been covered globally, from American news networks to morning shows in Europe and Asia. But more than just media coverage, it left a trail of inspiration. School teachers shared the story in classrooms to teach empathy. Mental health advocates pointed to it as a case study in emotional intelligence. And everyday people, waiters, cab drivers, students, parents, were still talking about it. Not because Keanu is famous, but because his reaction reminded them what goodness looks like in real life. Online, fans began calling it the Keanu effect, a ripple of positivity sparked by one man's decision to respond with kindness when it mattered most. Even the LAPD issued a statement, not just acknowledging the incident, but commending both Keanu and Officer James for handling it with maturity and mutual respect. And perhaps most beautifully of all, Keanu never sought the spotlight for any of it. He never posted a thing, no interviews, no red carpet explanations, no social media reflection. He went back to work, back to his quiet routines, back to life. And in doing so, he reminded us that the most powerful moments often come not from what we say, but from how we act when nobody tells us what to do. As the camera fades, we're left not with flashing lights or dramatic music, but a simple truth. Kindness doesn't need a stage. It just needs a heart. Keanu Reeves may be known to the world as an action star, a blockbuster hero, a Hollywood legend. But on that ordinary morning, on that ordinary street, he became something even greater. Proof that being good, being patient, being human, can still make all the difference. And that's why his reaction didn't just go viral. It touched hearts around the world.